Do you have any problem with what I'm doing? You high school diploma loser.
This was what the man who remodeled my own house without my consent had the nerve to say to me. And that's not all. He even brought his mistress to see the remodeled house. Naturally, I was furious. Who do you think is to blame for this? A high school diploma? He's the one who made me drop out of college. My rare outburst of anger left my daughter, Megan, speechless. Still, I had to speak up for our future, for the sake of our future. As planned, I received a divorce paper signed by Ryan, who had been too enraged to think clearly.
Mom, we did it.
Submitted immediately. With our pre-packed belongings in tow, we headed straight to the station after filing the paperwork. Our destination was New York City, where my one and only relative, Aunt Emily, lives. My name is Catherine Smith, 38 years old. My husband, Ryan, of the same age, is currently working out of state on his own. So for now, it's just me and my daughter, Megan, who will be starting high school this year. As you might guess from her age, we married young. That's because I found out I was pregnant with Megan in the spring of my senior year of college. I panicked. At that time, I had very few people I could call family. My parents both died in a car accident when I was 20. While I was still reeling from the shock, an unbelievable sum of their life insurance money came to me. I also inherited the house and land my parents had built about 10 years earlier. But then, relatives who had hardly ever been involved with us suddenly swarmed around me, clearly after the money and assets I'd gained in exchange for my parents' lives. Looking back, I realized my parents, especially my mom, probably avoided these relatives because they couldn't stand their nature. The only close family member I had was Aunt Emily. Aunt Emily was 10 years younger than my dad, so to me, she felt more like an older sister than an aunt. Both of them also lost their parents early in life, but with no relatives nearby to rely on, they went through a lot of hardships. On the other hand, my mom's side of the family, though geographically closer, completely shunned her for marrying a man they considered an outsider, leaving her to fend for herself. Then came the sudden windfall of a large insurance payout. My parents, determined to shield me from the struggles they had faced, had taken out substantial life insurance policies. Unaware of their intentions, my relatives swarmed around me like vultures. They figured a 20-year-old like me couldn't possibly manage such a large amount of money and approached me under various pretexts. It was Aunt Emily who put them in their place.
You've done nothing to help until now, and you think you can just swoop in when it suits you?
Her words carried the weight of someone who had endured tough times alongside my father, leaving the relatives speechless. Although I wanted to live with Aunt Emily after that, it wasn't possible. She was the type to prioritize work over marriage and had rented a tiny apartment in New York City, traveling constantly for her job. Even so, my sudden pregnancy must have shocked her. The father of my child was none other than Ryan, who is now my husband. I met Ryan at the freshman welcome event for our college department. To be honest, my impression of him up until sophomore year was pretty neutral, neither good nor bad. But after my parents' accident, he started getting close to me rapidly. Back then, I was overwhelmed with grief from losing both parents at once and worn out from dealing with opportunistic relatives. I was lonely, desperate, and yearning for someone to rely on. So I clung to Ryan, who showered me with kind words. When I found out I was pregnant in my senior year, I was understandably shocked. Even though I was inexperienced in relationships, I had always told Ryan to be careful because I couldn't afford to have a child during college. I also tried to avoid risky days, but still. At the time, I was already job hunting in a nearby mid-sized city and had even secured a job offer. And yet, the unexpected pregnancy changed everything. Ryan, however, responded lightly with a laugh.
Oh, is that all? Then let's just get married.
Though I felt a twinge of doubt, I was moved to tears, touched by his willingness to consider marriage. I consulted Aunt Emily, who was so furious she looked ready to explode. She even tried to confront Ryan physically, as if to avenge her brother. Perhaps because of that, Ryan has avoided Aunt Emily ever since. He rarely meets her and shows no interest in her current whereabouts. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, just took photos. As college students, that was the best we could do, and I gave up my childhood dream of wearing a wedding dress. I considered continuing college, but with the uncertainty of childcare, I decided to drop out instead. Aunt Emily encouraged me to take a leave of absence and finish my degree eventually, but I was determined to quit entirely. After registering our marriage, Ryan and I started our new life in my house. It was a 2-story home typical of small towns, and living there alone had felt excessive. Back then, it seemed just right for the two of us. Ryan quickly moved in, claimed his space, and soon began asserting that he was the breadwinner. He adopted a system where he handed me a portion of his earnings for household expenses. Back when I was younger, Ryan was the one working, so I just went along with whatever he said. But one day, after over a decade of living like that, Ryan suddenly announced,
Hey, Catherine, let's do a major remodel on this house.
"A remodel? Why? There's nothing wrong with it as it is."
Oh, there's definitely something wrong. Sure, it's a big house, but all these rooms make it feel outdated.
At that moment, a rare surge of anger flared up inside me. This is the house where I was born and raised. What right do you have to say that? I wanted to snap back at him, but I wasn't used to arguing, and the words didn't come easily. Sure, the house was getting older, but it had been built with top-notch features for its time, and both Mom and I had taken good care of it. Most importantly, the house was filled with memories of my parents. Thanks to Dad's preference for spacious living, this house was larger than most in the neighborhood. The yard was also generously sized, with fruit trees and seasonal flowers that I enjoyed tending as a stay-at-home mom. What's wrong with these rooms? I find them cozy and relaxing.
You don't get it, do you? That's what you'd expect from someone who never went to college. With these style rooms, the furniture options are so limited.
Furniture? I frowned instinctively. Did we really need more furniture in this house? Ryan's income had grown since we got married, so thinking about interior design wasn't a bad idea in itself. But personally, I loved these cozy rooms and wanted to keep them as they were. I didn't want to add any more bulky furniture. Megan and I both preferred clean, open spaces where we could relax. But there was a bigger issue. And where exactly is the money for this remodel going to come from? This was where things got tricky because I didn't know how much Ryan earned or how much he had saved. We got married young and decided to save as much as possible. Could that be the reason? Ryan has never shown me his pay stubs. I only realized how odd that was after Megan started kindergarten and I made some mom friends. As we chatted about various topics, managing household finances naturally came up. When I mentioned that I'd never seen Ryan's pay stubs, they were shocked.
That's unthinkable. It doesn't matter how young you are, Catherine. Letting your husband control all the money isn't right.
Exactly. You never know what a husband might be doing behind your back.
Most of my mom friends were 5 to 10 years older than me, and they were sympathetic to my situation. They encouraged me to take control of the finances, but honestly, I was a bit slow to act on their advice. That's probably because whenever we were short on funds, I'd quietly withdraw some money from my own savings to cover the gap. I never talked about using the savings from my parents' insurance. The memories of those greedy relatives swarming around me after my parents' deaths were still vivid in my mind. Maybe I didn't want my husband to end up like that. So, I asked Ryan again, "Do you have the money for this remodel?" Ryan suddenly said,
You have your savings, don't you?
I gasped. Was he really bringing that up now? He continued,
When your parents died in that accident, you got a big payout from their life insurance, right? I don't know the exact amount, but considering you weren't worried about your future back then, it must have been a decent sum.
That's. I started but hesitated. It was enough for us to live comfortably.
Then it's fine, isn't it? You can pay for the remodel out of your savings.
Wait a minute. I never said I wanted a remodel. Ryan leaned in close, his tone mocking.
Oh, it's too late for that.
What do you mean? With a smirk I rarely saw, Ryan pulled a folder out of his bag. What's this?
It's the paperwork. Since you weren't moving forward with anything, I went ahead and took care of it while it's still a good season to book contractors.
Inside were documents and floor plans for the remodel. As I stared at them in disbelief, Ryan spoke with an exasperated tone.
Oh, I guess that's too complicated for someone like you to understand.
He pulled out his laptop, inserted a USB drive, and showed me a 3D model of the remodel. What is this? I couldn't help but stare at Ryan's face. No, it would be more accurate to say I was glaring at him. After all, it was a combination of several bedrooms. For example, 2 bedrooms were replaced with a large living dining kitchen area, breaking down the walls. The second floor was turned into cheap-looking wooden floors. There's no way I want to live in a place like this. No, I absolutely refuse. I'm not paying for this.
It's too late.
What do you mean by that? He looked at me with a triumphant expression.
Do you even understand what it means to have all this ready? No, I'm sure you don't.
He said condescendingly.
It means the contract's already signed. The construction will start soon.
Construction? Then what are we supposed to do while that's happening?
Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to tell you. This spring, I'm being transferred to another state for work. I'll be living there alone.
A work transfer? Had I ever heard anything about that before? That's way too sudden.
Well, telling you wouldn't change anything, would it?
I can't reason with him at all.
Well, during the construction, you and the real estate agent can figure out an apartment to rent. I've got to head out pretty soon.
I was too stunned to do anything for a while. What brought me back to my senses was Megan and Aunt Emily.
Pull yourself together, Mom.
That's right, Catherine. Clearly, this remodel was all part of his plan. Why not cancel it now?
I looked over the paperwork again. It's too late. Just the cancellation fees alone would cost a fortune. That would mean wasting a lot of money. If that was the case, I figured we might as well go through with the remodel.
That man, he kept it hidden from you until it was too late to back out.
Aunt Emily said bitterly.
What are you going to do, Mom?
What can I do? I hesitated. At that time, Megan was about to start her final year of middle school. At a time like this, with her exams coming up, I can't believe I'm making her worry about all this.
Still, this sudden work transfer seems a little suspicious.
Aunt Emily muttered. What do you mean?
I mean, what exactly is Ryan planning to do at his new post? And honestly, Catherine, you've been far too trusting of him. He's taken advantage of that.
Aunt Emily trailed off.
Anyway, I have a few thoughts about that man. I'll do some digging. I know his company, and I'll look into that neighboring state he's moving to.
Before long, the remodel became a reality. Megan and I went to a real estate agent to look for a suitable apartment near her school.
Well, the property values in your area are quite high, so finding something nearby might be pricey. But closer to your daughter's school, there might be more affordable options.
Really? Are the property values that different? I'd never heard anything about that, not even from my parents. After all, they were a young couple when they built the house, so I never thought of the area as particularly valuable. The property taxes had been auto-deducted from my savings, so I'd never given it much thought.
Well, there's been a lot of development around your neighborhood recently, hasn't there?
Now that he mentioned it, a large shopping complex had been built nearby. The area had become much more convenient compared to when I was a child.
So if you were to remodel and then sell, your house could fetch quite a high price.
Sell? The idea stirred something in me. Could you tell me more about that? And so, a few months later, we moved into the remodeled house. It was far from comfortable.
Mom, why does the house look like this now?
Megan asked as we stood in the house, which still smelled of the glue from the new wallpaper.
I mean, I can't believe Dad's taste.
You're right. Honestly, I think the apartment we stayed in before was better. The temporary place we chose to stay in was an older, spacious apartment.
Are you sure this is the place you want?
The real estate agent looked surprised at the sight of me and Megan, a middle schooler. But for us, having cozy room was the most important thing.
I like the old house better.
Me too. I was born and raised in the house, and you didn't know them, but it held so many memories of your grandparents,
But now all of that is gone.
she said, and her words made my eyes well up. As I wiped my tears, I noticed a woman standing just outside our new wooden fence, staring at the house. Can I help you with something? Feeling uneasy, I stepped outside and approached her.
Oh, the remodeling turned out great. Oh, I'm Kate Sweeney. I'm sure you've heard of me.
She spoke in an overly cheerful voice.
I mean, aren't you the housekeeper that person hired?
That person?
Oh, come on. The owner of this house. Don't you know Ryan?
Even as she said this, I wasn't sure how to respond. Before I could, Megan appeared, as if to support me.
Oh, are you Ryan's daughter?
Yes, I am. Who exactly are you?
Oh, wow. You don't look like him at all.
I chose to stay silent at that. Her frequent references to that person made it clear she had some sort of connection to Ryan. Trying to calm Megan, who was visibly irritated, I attempted to stay composed. So, what brings you here today?
Obviously, I came to check out the house before I move in. Oh, and hey girl, do you want to be friends with me?
What kind of question is that? If you'd like, would you like to come inside and have a look? Trying to soothe Megan, who seemed ready to snap, I invited Kate in.
Of course. That's why I came.
Pretending to be the housekeeper, I subtly managed to extract more information about her.
Thanks. Now I need to decide what furniture to get.
Her eyes sparkling as she scanned the house. And without even being asked, Kate started babbling about herself and Ryan. I see. This woman must be my husband's mistress.
Thanks. See you soon?
Kate waved cheerfully and left, her voice carefree. The moment she was gone, Megan's restrained anger erupted.
Mom, why did you let that woman into the house?
But now you understand, don't you? Who she really is. Realizing the truth, Megan's anger grew, and she immediately called Aunt Emily, her fury spilling into the phone.
The woman came in person?
Aunt Emily latched onto the news. I explained everything Kate had said in detail. Then Emily said in an excited voice,
This makes everything clear. I've been gathering evidence of Ryan's affair for a while now, but I couldn't figure out who the other woman was. Now I can move forward.
Emily thanked me and hung up. So he really did have a mistress. The thought settled over me, and oddly enough, I felt a strange sense of relief. I turned to Megan and asked her suddenly, Megan, would you mind if I divorced your dad?
Of course not.
She answered instantly.
I've always wondered why you were the only mom who had to be so frugal. It used to embarrass me that you wore the same clothes every year. But now I realize it's because Dad barely gave you any money for living expenses.
She noticed it.
And just looking at my friends' dads, I realized ours never played with me or spent any time with us. He always claimed he was busy with work, but he had time for someone like her. Let's leave him, Mom. Let's leave him together.
Her words solidified my resolve. In the weeks that followed, the three of us, me, Aunt Emily, and Megan, stayed in close contact and began taking action. My role in our plan was to exaggerate Kate's visit and confront Ryan over the phone. Some strange woman came by today. She called me the housekeeper. What exactly have you been telling her?
Do you have a problem with what I'm doing? You high school diploma loser.
Who do you think is to blame for all of this? Megan stood stunned by the rare sight of me arguing so fiercely. That's true. She wasn't used to seeing me, usually so gentle, raising my voice and cornering someone like this. The argument, unlike anything she'd seen before, lasted 2 hours. The next day, I received an express delivery. It was divorce papers signed by Ryan.
Mom, you did it.
Let's file it immediately. We grabbed the luggage we had packed in advance, and after stopping by the courthouse, headed straight to the station. Our destination was New York City, where Aunt Emily lived. 2 weeks later, My phone was buzzing nonstop with calls from Ryan in our new home.
Catherine, where the hell are you right now? How could you do something like that? Do you think you can get away with selling the house without telling me?
His angry voicemails kept piling up, one after another. Listening to them, the three of us, Megan, Aunt Emily, and I, couldn't help but laugh. There's nothing to get away with. That house was mine to begin with.
Exactly. You inherited it. You paid for the remodeling. It was always your decision.
Aunt Emily added, chuckling as she aired her frustrations at the voicemails. He didn't even realize you could sell it. Typical Ryan. I had always known Ryan underestimated me. Recently, Aunt Emily had found evidence in her investigation, a conversation between Ryan and Kate. She's the kind of woman who'll marry you if you get her pregnant. So from the very beginning, he thought of me as someone easy to control. Yet he treated me as a failure for dropping out of college, something his actions had caused. In every argument, he'd throw out phrases like, "for a high school graduate." And every time, I'd feel a deep, simmering anger. Of course, Megan is the most precious thing in my life now. But that doesn't change the fact that Ryan disrupted my plans, my life. What was an unplanned pregnancy for me was, for him, a way to secure a submissive wife, a home, and assets. So, do you think they'll show up here?
Dad knows Aunt Emily is your only close relative. It's only a matter of time before he figures out we're here.
Exactly. Ryan understands that much. He knows that if we were to seek refuge quickly, we'd go to Aunt Emily's place. Sure enough, a few days later, Ryan and Kate came pounding on the door of our new house. Bang! Bang! They hammered on the door, yelling. Why does he have to hit the door so hard?
Damn it, Catherine. You moved without telling me.
We had relocated to a modest pre-owned house on the outskirts of New York City. Using the money from selling the remodeled house, I had bought this one. Although it was a bit outside the city, the area was convenient and surrounded by nature. We decided to rent a modest pre-owned single-family home, perfect for 3 women to live without any unnecessary baggage. This was the place Aunt Emily, who had always told me, "Come to me if you need to escape," would share with us. In this tightly packed suburban neighborhood, loud voices like Ryan's would quickly draw the curious eyes of the neighbors. For a while now, we could hear the relentless sound of the doorknob being yanked, followed by the loud banging on the door. Peeking through the curtains, we confirmed that the neighbors' curious gazes had indeed turned toward us. Then, over the intercom, we addressed Ryan and Kate. "What's the meaning of this? Why have you come here?"
Shut up. What's the deal with selling the house all of a sudden? I finally remodeled it into my dream home, and just when I thought I'd successfully kick you out as planned, another family moved in because you sold it. I didn't know. I had no idea.
What an absurd thing to say. To the raging Ryan, I calmly replied through the intercom. "Of course, I didn't tell you. You would have just tried to stop me."
What are you talking about, Catherine?
Let's be clear. That house was mine. I inherited it from my parents. It was in my name. And the money for the remodel didn't come from any shared assets. It was from my own pre-marriage savings.
Wait, what?
Kate's voice chimed in. Apparently, she hadn't been aware of that detail. She quickly seemed to grasp the implication of what I'd said, that the assets were mine. I've already resolved everything with the remodeling company and the real estate agent. But since you weren't involved, you didn't have a clue. And you call yourself a college graduate?
Let's stop this.
A voice came from behind. Surprisingly, Kate seemed to be thinking more clearly than Ryan. With a trembling voice, she said to him,
Ryan, you told me that beautiful house would be ours. Didn't you pay for it?
I thought I did.
The three of us burst into loud laughter at the two of them. How could you even think that? Are you an idiot?
Why would you assume that house could ever belong to you?
Seriously, are you stupid?
We each took turns mocking him, prompting Ryan to shout back.
Stupid? Megan, what the hell are you saying?
What else would you call it? Oh wait, maybe I was stupid too because I was stupid enough to marry you when I was young and naive.
No, the stupidity started when you even dated him in the first place, Catherine.
And Emily interjected.
Exactly. Dad's the stupid one.
Megan, even you?
I don't even want to call him Dad anymore. I thought dads were supposed to care about their kids. But my dad, he never did anything for me.
Is that true?
Kate's puzzled voice could be heard.
I always envied my classmates whose dads showed up for events. But if my dad was the type to cheat, it's better he didn't come.
Catherine, how could you tell her something like that?
How old do you think Megan is? And besides, wasn't it you who said you had someone on the side? Ryan fell silent. Oh, and Kate, thank you so much for visiting the other day.
What?
Kate's nervous voice trembled.
Truly, I owe you one. It was such a struggle to confirm who Ryan's mistress was, but your little visit gave me the final piece of the puzzle.
And Emily chimed in.
Ryan, I've been investigating ever since you decided to transfer for work. I could uncover everything about your cheating, except who the other woman was. You did a great job hiding Kate. For someone so clever about that, how could you be so clueless about private property? Or did you think you could just change the paperwork?
Wait, since when?
Ryan's voice shook as he asked.
Oh, since the beginning, of course. I was against your marriage from the start. After all, you suddenly swooped in on Catherine when she was vulnerable, following a family tragedy, and got her pregnant almost immediately.
Aunt Emily let out another hearty laugh.
I didn't want my sweet niece to be stuck with a man who would knock her up during such a difficult time. The only reason I relented was for Megan's sake. Be grateful. You had it easy for a while.
Easy for a while?
Kate seemed intrigued, stepping in to question her.
Oh, absolutely. Your salary kept going up, but you never increased the amount you gave Catherine for living expenses. What were you spending it on? Megan was growing up, and yet you didn't even consider her needs.
Well, Catherine managed, didn't she? So I thought it was enough.
She didn't say anything because she knew it was pointless with you. I interjected coldly.
What do you mean?
I mean, I always figured we'd end up divorced eventually. Economic abuse, you know? But you saved me the trouble by signing and sending those divorce papers so easily. I submitted them right away.
You planned this, Catherine.
Ryan yelled, his voice growing desperate as the banging on the door and rattling of the doorknob intensified. At that moment, Megan, who had been watching the neighbors through the window, gave us a small nod and a mischievous smile. She signaled with her fingers, and then a voice came from behind Ryan and Kate.
Excuse me, what's going on here?
What? Ryan and Kate turned around to see a police officer standing behind them.
I called them. I told them there were strange people trying to break down our door, and it was scary.
You called the cops on your own parent?
Well, doing something so aggressive doesn't help your case, right?
Megan chuckled softly, making sure the officers couldn't hear her. Yes, it was Megan who had called them. She had even specifically requested that they arrive quietly.
We received a report from this residence. You are under arrest for trespassing.
Several officers, who had arrived as backup, grabbed Ryan and Kate firmly by their shoulders.
Wait, arrested?
Yes, you were on their property, and as you can imagine, it must have been terrifying for these 3 women living here.
No, but this was my ex-wife and daughter's house.
And there's no gate with a lock here.
The two of them scrambled to string together excuses that didn't hold up.
We'll hear more about this at the station. At the very least, the residents of this house reported suspicious individuals banging on their door, making them feel unsafe. Coming here, we found the report to be accurate. You were clearly having a heated argument. Regardless of your relationship, this counts as trespassing, so we'll need you to come with us to the station.
Trespassing? Seriously?
Wait, her ex-husband just barged in?
Isn't this the house of that nice lady and her daughter?
The voices of the neighbors reached our ears. It paid off that we had made proper introductions to everyone when we moved in. It set the right impression. It feels just right. I raised my voice, doing my best to sound both frightened and resolute. You are no longer part of our lives. You sent the divorce papers yourself, so what exactly were you thinking? I've already spoken to a lawyer about your infidelity, and they'll also be addressing this intrusion soon.
A lawyer?
Infidelity compensation? You've got to be kidding.
Listening to their panic cries, the 3 of us calmly watched from inside as the 2 of them were loaded into the police car. After their release, they were greeted by the lawyer I had arranged. The lawyer filed claims for damages from the affair and repair costs for the door. Upon inspection, the door had a significant dent. Later, when I asked the police what caused it, they told me it had been hit with a crowbar-like object taken from their car. Hearing this, the 3 of us were relieved we hadn't opened the door. Additionally, I used my meticulously kept household records to compile evidence of financial abuse, claiming further compensation and child support for Megan. The total amount Ryan had to pay became significant, leaving him no choice but to work tirelessly moving forward. Rumor has it that the incident reached his workplace, leading to a falling out between Ryan and Kate. They reportedly broke up. But honestly, I couldn't care less about that part.
Okay, I'm off to school.
Megan's cheerful voice rang out as she headed to class. From our new home in this suburban neighborhood, it took only 7 minutes to reach the nearest station.
I'm heading out too.
Uh-oh, your lunch.
I forgot. I'm still stuck in old habits.
I laughed softly. Now, as the homemaker for our family of 3, I focus on managing the household and fostering good relationships with our neighbors while they're away. Thanks to the recent incident, we firmly established ourselves as 3 women who faced hardships but are trying our best. Living in a modest rental home makes us appear financially modest, which works in our favor. In truth, the proceeds from selling our previous house are more than enough to cover Megan's future college expenses, no matter where she chooses to go. One day, after Megan is grown, I plan to return to college myself. But for now, that day is still far off. For the time being, I'll continue to enjoy a peaceful life, navigating neighborly relations with care,